It all started when my sister asked if her son, Ryan, could stay with me while he did his internship in the city. I agreed without hesitation. He was family, and I had always been close to him. When Ryan was younger, I used to babysit him, take him to the park, and help with homework. Watching him grow into a man was something I never paid attention to until now. When he arrived, I noticed how different he looked. Taller, more mature, with a quiet confidence. We fell into a comfortable rhythm, cooking meals together, watching shows, sharing late-night talks. Those talks became more frequent, and sometimes I found myself waiting for them. I brushed it off as bonding, but deep down something didn't feel normal. Ryan had a way of looking at me, one that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I was recently divorced, emotionally drained, and his presence was like a light in the dullness of my routine. He would compliment my cooking, my laugh, even the way I dressed. At first, I thought it was innocent. But then, one night, he said, "You don't even know how amazing you are, do you?" And something shifted inside me. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying his words, his tone, the way he looked at me when he said them. I scolded myself, told myself it was wrong to even entertain the thought. But the more I tried to suppress it, the more aware I became of every interaction with him. We started sharing wine during dinner, laughing more, leaning in closer when we talked. There was a moment, a brief, charged silence, when our eyes met and neither of us looked away. I felt my heart race and quickly excused myself, locking my bedroom door behind me like a guilty teenager. Days passed, and I tried to create distance. I stayed out longer, avoided being alone with him. But Ryan noticed. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked one night, his voice uncertain. I told him I was just tired. He nodded, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. The truth was, I didn't trust myself anymore. There was something unspoken growing between us, something I knew we couldn't act on. But it was there, hanging in the air, and neither of us had the courage to name it. The final straw came on a rainy Sunday afternoon. We were both on the couch, wrapped in blankets, watching an old movie. He rested his head on my shoulder, and I let it stay there. I shouldn't have, but I did. His hand brushed mine and lingered. We didn't speak, didn't move, just sat in that quiet space where lines begin to blur, and neither of us pulled away. After that afternoon, everything between us changed, even though we pretended it hadn't. The silence became heavier. The way he looked at me lingered longer than it should have. I tried to stay composed, to carry on as usual, but something inside me had already given in. I felt vulnerable, ashamed, and yet more alive than I had in years. Ryan became more confident, less hesitant in his words and actions. He started complimenting me more openly, telling me things no one had said in a long time. "You deserve to feel special every day," he told me one night, his voice calm but deliberate. I didn't respond, but I couldn't deny how it made me feel. His words echoed in my mind, stirring emotions I had buried for years. He began finding reasons to be near me, helping in the kitchen, brushing past me when reaching for something, his hand lingering on my back when saying goodnight. Each moment felt small but carried a weight that kept building. I wasn't imagining it. There was something there, growing stronger with every shared glance, every accidental touch. I hated myself for noticing, but I noticed everything. I thought maybe I was the only one confused, the only one crossing boundaries in my mind. But one night, that illusion shattered. He came to my room, not with a request, but with a look I hadn't seen from him before. I told him to go back, that it was late. But he didn't leave right away. Instead, he said, "Why are we pretending this doesn't mean anything?" I froze. No more guessing, no more silent questions. It was real, and we both knew it. My heart pounded. I told him this couldn't happen, that it was wrong. He didn't argue. He simply looked at me, his expression calm but sure, and said, "Then tell me to stop feeling the way I do." I couldn't. I didn't say anything. He stood there, waiting. And in that silence, something unspoken passed between us again. It wasn't about desire. It was something deeper, something that made walking away feel impossible. From that day on, we acted as though nothing had happened, But we were both lying. Every word, every glance, every step around the apartment became charged. I caught myself smiling at his texts, waiting for him to come home, missing him when he wasn't around. And he watched me like he was memorizing everything I did. I tried to pull away. I tried to remind myself of the truth. He was my nephew. But I was losing the fight. Each time he spoke, each time he made me laugh, I found myself falling deeper. It wasn't supposed to be this way, but we had already crossed the line. Now we were lost in it. We both knew there was no turning back. What had started as an emotional connection had turned into something neither of us could ignore. There was no physical line crossed, but the emotional intimacy had gone far beyond acceptable. We shared a secret now, something fragile, dangerous, and incredibly addictive. Every day, I told myself to stop it. Every night, I found myself waiting for him to knock on my door, even if he never did. He would sit beside me more often now, closer than before, sometimes our hands brushing without moving away. He started telling me things he hadn't shared with anyone else, his fears, his insecurities, his dreams. I listened, and I let myself be drawn in. I didn't know if I was more ashamed of how I felt or how much I needed it. There was a comfort in him that made me forget all the reasons this was wrong. He told me once, "You're the only person who understands me." I wanted to believe it wasn't manipulation, that it was genuine. And I think it was. But that only made it worse. I wasn't some stranger he'd met online. I was someone who helped raise him. Someone his mother trusted. And that trust was the very thing I was betraying every time I let him get closer. It was a quiet kind of affair, no kisses, no confessions. Just long talks, private jokes, and that underlying connection that we never dared name. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. My sister started to notice. She mentioned how close we seemed lately. I laughed it off, but her eyes lingered. She wasn't suspicious yet, but the seed had been planted. That terrified me more than anything. I started keeping more distance, locking my door again, ending conversations quickly. But Ryan didn't take it well. He became moody, quieter, almost resentful. One evening, he asked, "Are you ashamed of me?" I didn't know what to say. I told him this wasn't right, that we had to stop. He looked at me with hurt in his eyes and said, "It's only wrong because of who we are. But it doesn't feel wrong. Not to me." That night, I cried. Not just for what was happening, but for how much I had let it go on. I had blurred the lines, allowed it to grow into something it never should have been. And now he was hurt, confused, and far more involved than I ever meant for him to be. He wasn't just a young man with a crush. He was in deep, and I had played a role in pulling him there. I knew I had to make a decision, because no matter how much we felt, this was something we could never explain. And if it came to light, it wouldn't just break us. It would destroy the entire family. It couldn't continue. The risk had grown too large, the guilt too heavy. Every time I looked at Ryan, I saw a boy caught in emotions he didn't yet understand. And I saw a woman who had failed to set boundaries, who had let her loneliness speak louder than reason. I knew I had to end it, fully, finally, without another moment of hesitation. I sat him down and told him the truth, the version that hurt the most. I told him I was wrong, that what we shared had gone too far, and it couldn't happen again. He didn't speak right away. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "You're doing this because you're scared, not because you don't feel the same." He was right. I did feel the same, but that wasn't the point. Feeling something didn't make it right. I told him that, too. He looked betrayed. Not angry, just shattered. And that was the part one hadn't prepared for. I had told myself I was protecting him by ending things, but seeing his face made it clear I was also breaking something he believed was real. He left the room without another word. That silence lasted for days. During that time, I avoided being home. I threw myself into work, errands, anything that would keep me from facing what I'd done. When I did return, he was always distant, polite, cold. The warmth was gone, and in its place was a sadness I couldn't fix. I had made the choice to end it, and now I had to live with the aftermath. Eventually, he completed his internship and moved out. My sister thanked me for hosting him and said he seemed quieter, more withdrawn. I smiled and lied, saying he had just been stressed. Deep down, I knew it wasn't stress. It was heartbreak, and I was the cause of it. Months passed. He texted me once. Just a simple, "Hope you're doing okay." I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. I knew that one response could start everything all over again. And I couldn't allow that, not to him, not to myself, not to my family. I still think about him, about what we had, about the emotional maze we built and got lost in. I wonder if he hates me now or if part of him still holds on. But I don't reach out. I've made peace with the silence. Some mistakes can't be undone, only carried. What we shared wasn't nothing. It was real, it was deep, but it was never meant to last. It was born from vulnerability, not love. And now, it lives only in memory. A beautiful, painful reminder of what happens when you cross a line that should have never been touched.